Welcome back. So in this video, I will be discussing the history of management. We will talk about the different um, philosophers or different contributors of management, and we'll discuss their contribution and try to learn what did they do in the past that actually contributed to management at present. So without further ado, let's start with our discussion. So let's now discuss the historical foundation of management. All right, so we will take a look at the classical perspective first of management. So we have here the scientific management, administrative principle, workers' perspective, and bureaucratic organization. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at your scientific management. So scientific management is also called Taylorism. So I believe you're familiar with Taylor. We'll talk about that later on, huh? It's not Taylor Swift, of course. So it is a theory of management. Your scientific management is basically a theory of management that analyzes and synthesizes, workflows. So the main objective is improving economic efficiency and, of course, labor productivity. So in addition to that, okay, so in your scientific management, we have here Adam Smith and Taylor, Frederick Winslow Taylor. So it is also known as Taylorism because the the theory of Frederick Taylor has been so popular that they mentioned scientific management as also known as Taylorism. So we also have here Frank Bunker Gilbreth, Lillian Moeller Gilbreth, and of course Henry Gant. So let's take a look at Adam Smith first. So he was a Scottish moral philosopher, pioneer of political economy. Okay. He's also known as your father or father of economics. Yan. So he introduced the division of labor or job specialization, and he believed that it could increase productivity for a better organizational performance. So when you say job specialization, you work on a certain area wherein you are expert on that area. Okay, there you go. So we also have here Frederick Winslow Taylor. So he is an American mechanical engineer who worked toward the improvement of industrial efficiency. Okay, so he rose from the rank of being an apprentice to a day laborer to a machinist, to a foreman until he became an engineer. Yan. So he earned the title of Father of Scientific Management and, of course, Efficiency Movement. There. Okay, so there are 4 principles of scientific management according to Taylor. So he replaced the rule of thumb work method. When you say rule of thumb work method, something that is practical, okay? So he replaced that method into a method based on scientific studies. Okay, scientifically selected, trained, and developed workers rather than passively leaving them to train themselves. Okay, what else? Cooperated with workers to ensure that the scientifically developed methods are being followed and divided work nearly equally between managers and workers. Okay. So we also have here Frank Bunker Gilbreth. So he was also an early advocate of scientific management, and he pioneered motion study. So he started as a bricklayer. Okay, bricklayer, ito yung kumbaga sa Tagalog or sa Ilocano, agkabkabiti. Okay, gumagawa ng ano to, yung diyan yung kabiti, bricklayer. Okay, became a building contractor, an inventor, and evolved into my management engineer. So he focused his study on motion, okay, which was inspired by his bricklayering experience. Okay, so the result of his and Taylor's work combined led to time and motion study, the concept of the best way. So his work has a great impact on medical surgery by drastically reducing time spent on the operating table. Yan. And then ito naman asawa ni Frank Bunker Gilbreth. So we have here Lillian Moeller. Okay. So she earned the title the First Lady of Management. So she pioneered in the field of industrial psychology and made substantial contribution to human resource management. So she is cited to have become the first American engineer ever to create a synthesis of psychology and scientific management. Here. Okay. So what else? She's known for work simplification. Okay, so she was influenced in the development of the modern kitchen. Okay, the work triangle. So a linear kitchen layout. So as um, perhaps you might be working in a restaurant in the future, if you notice, okay, it's as if its layout is somewhat triangular. Why triangular? It's easier kasi for you to move. Okay, so parang triangle yan, yung pinaka-important na location ng mga what's this? Importanteng appliances, halimbawa, no, sa kitchen, parang naka-triangular layout siya. Kasi it's easier for you to move. Yan. And of course, if you are cooking, mas madali kasing gumalaw. Okay? So this was influenced by, okay, Lillian Moeller Gilbreth. Okay? So the couple became instrumental to other studies like fatigue study, which is the forerunner of today's ergonomics, human body, its movements, and its cognitive ability. So these efforts were inspired by the concept of Third-Blig. Actually, binaliktad lang nila yung kanilang apelyido. So Third-Blig is the study of motion economy in the workplace. Okay, there you go. All right, we also have here Henry Kant. So he designed the task and bonus system to wage payment and additional measurements method that's used by worker to efficiently and effectively work. Okay, there. So this is an example of a Gantt chart contributed by, of course, Henry Gantt. So a Gantt chart is a bar graph that measures planned and completed work along each stage of production by time elapsed. Okay, there. So let's take a look at the characteristics of scientific management. Okay. So developed a standard method of performing each job, selected method or selected workers with appropriate abilities to each or for each job, trained workers in standard methods, supported workers by planning their work and eliminating interruptions, provided wage incentives to workers for increased outputs. In addition to that, let's also discuss the different or let's take a look at the different drawbacks of scientific management. So they did not appreciate the social context of work and higher needs of workers. So they are so focused on the end result. They did not consider, okay, the human um, part of management. So they did not acknowledge also variance among individuals. They tended to regard workers as uninformed and ignored their ideas and suggestions. Okay, they treated also workers in a machine-like fashion. So these are the drawbacks of scientific management. All right, now let's proceed to bureaucratic organization naman. So this was developed by Max, okay, Weber. So he is a what's this? Um, hmm, Philosopher? Kaya Weber yung pronunciation ng kanyang pangalan. Okay, so he was a German theorist, yan, as I mentioned earlier, who pursued interests in the field of law, history, and sociology. So his perspective emphasized management on the basis of impersonal and rational relationship through, okay, such element as authority and responsibility, formal record keeping, and separation of management and ownership. So there is supposedly a separation of management and ownership in the organization. If you are the owner of a certain business, you should not meddle with the manager in managing your business. Okay, it's their job as managers. All right, so an organization, according to Max, is based on rational authority. Okay, so if it's based on rational authority, it would be more efficient and adaptable to change because continuity is related to formal structure and positions rather than a particular person who may live or die. Okay. Yan. So these are the characteristics of Weberian bureaucracy. So labor is divided with clear definition of authority and responsibility. So positions are organized in hierarchy of authority. Okay. So when you say hierarchy of authority, uh, each position under the authority of higher one. So all personnel, in addition to that, are selected and promoted based on technical qualifications. Okay. Administrative acts and decisions are recorded in writing. And management is separate from the ownership of the organization. And of course, managers are subject to rules and procedures, which will ensure, of course, reliable and predictable behaviors. Yan. All right, now let's take a look at Henry Fayol. So he was a French mining engineer who developed his business administration theory. So if Taylor was focused on individual worker, Henry Fayol naman, on the other hand, was focused on the total organization rather than the individual worker. Okay, and he later delineated the management functions of planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating, and controlling. All right. So there are 14 principles of management according to Fayol. So there is division of labor or work specialization. Okay. So specializing encourages continuous improvements in skill and development of improvements in methods. So there is also authority. You have the right to give orders. If you are a manager, you have the right to give orders and power to exact obedience. Discipline also, so there is no slacking or bending of rules. There's also unity of command. meaning to say each employee has only one boss. Okay, so hindi pwede or it's not permissible for a subordinate, for examples, working in the finance department, okay, to report to another boss in the marketing department. So this employee who works in the financial department should report to his or her boss in the financial department only. Okay, there's also unity of direction. A single mind generates a single plan. Yan. So in the organization, you need to have, okay, a goal which is the same with the organization. So subordination of individual interest, meaning to say when at work, only work things should be thought about. Okay. What else? Remunerations. Employees receive fair payment. Centralization, consolidation of management functions. So decisions are made from the top or the top management. Scalar chain of superiors or the line of authority. So it refers to the formal chain of command, okay, running from top to bottom of the organization like the military. Okay. Order, all materials and personnel have a prescribed place and they must remain there. Equity, equality of treatment, of course. Personnel tenure, so limited turnover of personnel and lifetime employment for good workers. And initiative, thinking out a plan and do what it takes to make it happen. Okay. And we have all here also finally your Esprit de Corps. So harmony, cohesion among personnel. So it's a great source of strength in the organization. So Fayol stated that for promoting Esprit de Corps, the principle of unity of command should be observed and the dangers of divide and rule and abuse of written communication should be avoided. Yan. All right, so we have here your administrative principles. Among the 14 principles, the most popular concepts in management are, of course, number one, it's the unity of command, meaning to say an employee should receive order from only one superior. So you have your immediate boss. If you are, for example, a secretary, you only have one boss, okay? You do not receive command from other bosses, okay? But rather, you have your immediate superior. There's also division of work, so job specialization. Unity of direction, you need to have single plan of action. Okay, your scalar chain, so this is clearly defined limited chain of command from the top to the bottom levels. So allows for cross-departmental interaction of middle manager to speed decision making. All right, now let's take a look at Mary Parker Foley. So she was a guru of modern management, so known also as your prophet of management. So she was the one who questioned the mechanical views of scientific management, and she's more on the humanistic approach to an organization. Okay, so these are the key concepts of Mary Parker Foley. So we have here interrelatedness or coactive as opposed to coercive power. So the emphasis on power with, okay, rather than power over, okay, people. So power with people, where the situation will dictate the action that needs to be taken. So a community-based approach also with the idea that natural leaders are born within the group. So the leader guides and in turn is guided by the group. Okay, another concept is teaching is carried out by leading. Okay, and then a skillful leader influences by stimulating others. And finally, the idea of fluid leadership, where leaders and followers are in a relationship and the role of leader flows to where it is needed. Okay, there you go. All right, now we also have here Chester Barnard. Okay, so acceptance authority or theory of authority. So it states that people have free will and choose whether to follow management orders. So he stressed the value of informal organization. Okay, informal organization, by the way, we're talking about um, social group within the organization. When you socialize with your friends, that is an example of informal organization. Okay, now let's take a look at your humanistic perspective, okay, in management. So, human relations perspective, so increase in employee satisfaction, okay, would result to increased worker productivity. So, effective control, it says here, comes from within the individual worker rather than from the strict and authoritarian control. Okay, so we have here the Hawthorne studies, the effect of lighting to workers' output, wherein the experimenter effect, okay, says here that making the changes was interpreted by workers as a sign that management cared, okay, and more generally, it provided some mental stimulation that was good for morale and productivity. Okay, so when the management, for example, um, improve the lighting of a certain work area, they see that or they saw that as, uh, something that is a caring gesture. Okay, so the social effect also is another Hawthorne study wherein they concluded that being separated from the rest and being given a special treatment, the experimentees developed a certain bond and camaraderie that also increased productivity. Okay, there. And then we also have here your relay assembly test room. So the focus of the study is on the social effects in the workplace, assembling telephone switching equipment. And then they concluded, based on the studies, that money was not the cause of increased productivity, but rather improved human relations. Okay, now let's proceed to Abraham Maslow. So I believe you are familiar with the hierarchy of need by Abraham Maslow. So Abraham studied how mentally healthy and successful people achieved uh, towards self-actualization. So he stressed on the importance of focusing on positive qualities in people as opposed to treating them as a bag of symptoms. Okay, so here is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Of course, it starts with your psychological, and then safety, and then belongingness, esteem, and then finally is your self-actualization. Okay, let's proceed now to Douglas McGregor. So he introduced the X and Y theory of management. So he suggests that using the X style, okay, theory get poor results, while enlightened managers, or yes, using the Y style produce better performance and results and allows people to grow and develop. Okay, so here is the X and Y theory introduced by McGregor. So the assumption is that in your X theory, people dislike work, so they must be coerced, they must be forced, they must be controlled, threatened with punishments. Okay, People, according to this theory, prefer to be directed. They do not want responsibility. So the management's role here is to coerce and control employees. On the other hand, in your Y theory, the assumption is that work is as natural as play and rest. So people will exercise self-direction. People learn to accept and seek responsibility. They are creative, okay, imaginative. So managers' role here is that they develop the potential employees and help them to release that potential towards common goals. Okay, so there. X and Y theory of McGregor. Okay, so we also have behavioral sciences. Okay, or organizational development is the adaptation of new idea or behavior by an organization and how an organization can be designed to respond to the environment through internal change and development. So this became the precursor of organizational behavior or human behavior in organizations, or your HBO. Okay. All right. So operations research is consist of mathematical model building and other application of quantitative techniques to managerial problems. Operations management specializes in the physical production of goods and services. The commonly used method are, of course, forecasting, inventory modeling, scheduling, or break-even analysis. Information technology, of course, we're talking about systems that are designed to provide relevant information to managers. Okay. Now, let's take a look at the current theoretical trends. So we have your systems theory. We have here your closed system. Individuals and organization is in isolation from its environment. And we have also your open system. Okay, so adapting to changes in its external environment. Okay, so we have your entropy, synergy, and subsystems. So when we speak of your entropy, the concept for a system to run down and die if systems do not receive fresh inputs, okay, and energy from its environment. Like for example, in a business, if you do not have new ideas, okay, your business might eventually go bankrupt. Why? Because people will always want to buy or seek new improvements, new products. They always want new things. So you have to have fresh inputs. Okay, synergy. This is the concept that the whole is greater than the sum of it. So organizational units working together can accomplish more than those same units working alone. So synergy, more on like participation of others, okay, co-dependent with other units working together. Subsystems, on the other hand, parts of a system that depend on one another for functioning. So changes in one part if the organization affects another part or other parts. So organization must be managed as coordinated whole. Okay, so we also have your contingency view theory. So case view, each management situation is unique from one another. So we do not need to use uniform or universal principle. So universalist view believes that there is only one best way to do the things that works in one organization. But it's not always the case, of course. Okay, we also have here your TQM or your total quality management. So employee involvement. So it requires, or TQM requires, company-wide participation in quality control. Focus on customers. So focusing on the wants of the customers and trying to meet their expectations. Of course, we also have here benchmarking. This is a process where companies find out how others, okay, do something better than they do and then try to imitate or at least or maybe improve on it. It was improvement. Um, you continually improve, okay, your practices in the organization. All right, so there you go. So this ends our lecture on um, the history of management. Okay, thank you very much.